Greetings sailors and welcome back to World of Warships, and something I've not done in a while, which is one of my own replays rather than just sitting down and recording live. That is largely because I haven't really had many games at all where I've thought, oh, that's entertaining or interesting enough to be worth saving the replay. There was one game I sent to ATAM that wasn't that long ago where I kind of just didn't feel like doing it myself, but I had this game today and actually it was quite a fun game to play, so I thought I would put it up on my own channel. Now this is a pretty good set of circumstances for the Fantasque here, which is the Textry Tier 8 destroyer. For one thing, there is no carrier, which is always a huge boon when you don't have any smoke to work with. There's also not really any radar for me to worry about, and although some of the enemy destroyers could be potentially quite nasty in a close-up fight, especially the Kitakaze, you don't really want to be getting into close-up fights in something like a French destroyer unless you are sure that you've got a solid advantage, i.e. they are quite low health or you've got lots of allied backup. So what I've done initially in this game is I went into the B cap, and of course that was blocked, so it was just using my speed to see if I could get there. Sometimes, you know, the enemy team ignores a cap and you just get a free cap, but rather than stick around and have an early close range fight, which would cost lots of hit points, I bailed out, and now I'm going to try and put my range to use. And the range on this is pretty good. It's basically tier 8 cruiser range. You can get up to, I think, 15.7, which is not hugely long range for a tier 8 cruiser, but there are, I think, tier 8 cruisers that have less range than that. So, yeah, considering it's a much smaller target, a much faster target, and it doesn't have a citadel, you know, it does enjoy quite a few advantages. One thing I have done with this in terms of captain skills, and you'll be able to see at the end, I'll put up a thing of both the current captain skills and how I would like to flesh out the rest of this captain as well, is that although I don't have Concealment Expert, I do have the Concealment module on this ship. Crucially, this is the last of the line where you can get away with having only one of those and still stealth torp. Because on tiers 8, 9, and 10, you have the same 8-kilometer torpedoes. They're actually not bad, the French torps, but they kind of get a bit overlooked because, generally speaking, the surface detection is pretty poor. There's not that many circumstances where you get to run around being a pure torpedo boat. You can build your French destroyers to be pure torpedo boats. The torpedoes are pretty fast. They do have a pretty reasonable amount of damage, but you are very easily countered by other destroyers outspotting you because you've still got to get fairly close, especially at tier 10. 8 kilometers is really very close. And of course there are radars and things to worry about, but I don't have to worry about either of those things. I don't have to worry about air spotting, and the other destroyers, it seems like, aren't at this cap at all, and there's also the allied gearing here. So all in all, this is a fairly comfortable set of circumstances. So if need be, I can get to a position where I can stealth torp, but it's only by about 600 meters, also 6 kilometers there. No, that's definitely not right. The detection on this at the moment is 7.4 against your torp range of 8, so you have to be careful, but it can be done. On tier 9 and tier 10, you've got to have every stealth module before you can stealth torp. And can you even do it on the tier 10? I've not actually checked. I know with the tier 9 I have checked. You need both. For now though, I am using the range, I am pew-pewing, I am staying near allies, so I am unlikely to be purely focused, and just basically trying to set some fires and weaken these enemy ships, be a nuisance basically. These destroyers can be very good at that. The tier 8 premium, the Le Terrible, is arguably a little bit better because it's got less range by about 1 kilometer, but it's got a second faster rate of fire. And I don't have anything on this that buffs the rate of fire. I don't have Adrenaline Rush either, which is definitely a very desirable skill on French destroyers, but there are other skills that I kind of prioritize above that, but it's definitely one of the ones I want to get on this captain and on my other French destroyers. It's only a 14-point captain on this, so I had to choose carefully. I did actually choose Dazzle as one of the skills. You'll have noticed that coming up at various points. I will notice that coming up. That's one of those ones where it's hard to gauge actually the effectiveness as an end user, as it were, because when you have something like Adrenaline Rush, you get to see exactly the effect it's having. But with Dazzle, with that 15-second window of increased dispersion against you, it's hard to tell exactly how much that's helping at any given moment. When judging the damage you've taken versus the damage that you might have taken without it, because there's no way to directly compare those two things. So I don't know if it's a terribly popular skill. It also seems one of those things where actually there's probably room for it to be more desirable than it is. I mean, if it was like Adrenaline Rush, I keep bringing it back up, Adrenaline Rush, I don't know why, but in this particular instance, it's because, if it feels like Adrenaline Rush and the lower health your ship, the stronger the effect or the longer the duration of the Dazzle effect, actually that would probably be really, really useful on some destroyers, including the French. But yeah, as it is, I don't know that it is a particularly popular skill, just because, it is hard to gauge the effect it's having at any given moment. Anyway, so we did take this cap, which was nice, but what I got spotted by was that Cuniberti that has just gone into the cap. We're about to lose the Vittorio Veneto. We've also lost something else here, and we have got a big blob of enemy ships. That's kind of good news and bad news, though. It means there's not a lot down at the other end of the map. There's the enemy sub and the Kitakazi, both of which are fairly dangerous, but it means otherwise A and B are relatively secure right now. The bad news is the enemy team has just that kind of edge in ships. They still have a lot of very healthy ships, and they're starting to move here because they've started to prune away the ships that were here, that were, basically keeping them occupied, keeping them from moving forwards. They've started to realise that, oh yeah, we have all this health, and we have the numbers now that we've pruned away some of these ships. So that's not good news for the pair of remaining cruisers that are here. The Donskoy in particular, I don't know why they pushed out like that, but it's going to prove fatal for them. The Austin is actually going to do maybe better than you would expect, and one of the reasons why I came up to this corner was to provide spotting for the cruisers, so therefore they would actually be able to do something rather than just sitting there blind waiting for the ships to crawl up on them. I have no idea why the Donskoy pushed out, given that I was actively spotting, but yeah, there goes the Donskoy, so that was a bit of a waste, unfortunately. And it's at this point, okay, I'm going to use my speed, I'm going to get away. I can't really directly help the Austin. He's basically got to somehow cope on his own, and he will do for a surprisingly long time. Now, meanwhile, this has been going on. The Cuniberti has decided to actually come up round behind and try and take us by surprise. And this is actually a fight I am comfortable with. I've dodged the torpedoes. That was the only real danger there. The SAP could hurt, but with the reload booster especially, I can just really out-damage the Cuniberti in the short term. Plus I've got an Austin right next to me as well, and it's actually the Austin that the Cuniberti is very much focusing on, so I'm not entirely sure what the Cuniberti was thinking there, trying to bum rush an Austin, especially when their smoke was going to run out well before they got to the Austin, and I don't even know what the torpedo drop was meant for. So that's my first kill. Bit more damage. Fortunately, that has gotten me spotted, and we now see those battleships pushing down through the cap. Yeah, time for me to absolutely run all the way away and get a bit more distance. This thing doesn't want to fight close range to enemy capital ships, especially given that two of them are Preussens that have, of course, got very, very good secondaries potentially. So a bit more distance, pew-pewing at the Iowa. There's the Richelieu. It looks like the Austin. I think they actually that would have been Austin torps there. They've managed to do some decent damage up in that corner. They're in a kind of position where the enemy has to go and deliberately try and dislodge them, and that has actually helped them out a lot. So they're doing some good distraction work right now, and this means I can also comfortably open fire. Although people might open fire at me in return. But between the two of us, we can hopefully like take out this Richelieu perhaps, and do further damage to anything else that that might be getting a bit fresh, like one of the Preussens there. We have lost our remaining tier 10 battleship in the meantime, the Montana. The enemy Kitakaze is still around. We've got the Colbert capturing B, might even be the Kitakaze in B as well. And our last remaining battleship is tier 8, North Carolina. Meanwhile, the enemy Preußen division still very much alive. Iowa's still alive. Richelieu we are working on, but I could do with getting some fires here. Fires are always in the hands of RNG. Sometimes you get lucky, sometimes you don't. You can, of course, help yourself a little bit with flags and the captain skill. I can't remember what it's called now. Pyromaniacal. I have no idea. Arsonist. Is it arsonist? It might be arsonist. Yeah, which gives you a little bit of an extra kick. Given that these are 139mm guns, they are actually pretty good compared to a lot of other destroyer guns for setting fires, but they're still a fairly small caliber, all told. So yeah, the Richelieu's trying to withdraw. Would be nice to finish them off, but we can see that healthy Preußen is going for the kill. It looks like they're a bit sick and tired of the Austin being in that corner, and they are also close enough that their secondaries are opening up on me, so that's not so good for me, because those secondaries can prune my health surprisingly quickly. So the Austin, unfortunately, I mean, I was able to give the Austin a bit of warning that the Preußen was manoeuvring to try and get them, and they just get absolutely obliterated. They might have been able to go around to the north a little bit, but as it was, no, they got caught out of place, and that is that. But they lasted for a surprisingly long time. We've also, though, had movement elsewhere. We've had the Marseille take out the Colbert, which in theory means the middle is free, and that's where I'm headed at the moment. Rather than doing more ranged pew-pew, my thought is get in there and cap. And then I see the low health Richelieu, and I think, okay, now let's pew-pew at that. And then I see the even lower health Preußen. Yeah, so that is higher tier battleship. It's got more dangerous secondaries. It's got more bigger dangerous guns than the Richelieu. Actually, is it the same number of guns? I think it's 8 guns, or is it more on the Preußen? I should know that. But it's triple barrels on the Preußen, isn't it? But yeah, higher priority target anyway, even though they are both very low health. So that should do it. Excellent. But I am still spotted by the other Preußen, and I need to maneuver to get away. Fortunately, they had AP loaded for things not destroyers, and so by the time they've reloaded, I should be unspotted, and that should be fine. So this has turned out to be pretty close. We have 3 surviving ships. I actually seem to have the highest proportion of my hit points left, versus that very low health Richelieu, and actually quite a healthy Preußen. But having said that, they might not have any heals left at this point. So here's where that stealth torp capability comes in very, very useful. And I'd be able to do this in the Fantasque, not Fantasque, the Le Terrible as well. I wouldn't be able to do it in the tier 9 or the tier 10 with this particular captain setup without being spotted first. And of course, if you're spotted, they will maneuver. There's also the possibility that the Preußen is running Hydro, but I might as well try. Ideally, what I would do here is spot for my allies, and they would actually do the damage to these guys without exposing themselves. But the Marseille is pushed up to a point where they're not spotted at the moment, I think, but they will be very shortly. However, fortunately for me, there appears to be no Hydro running, and I am going to nail that Preußen for the remainder of their health, 4 torpedo hits. And yeah, there's the speed of those torpedoes coming in very, very useful. That just leaves them the Richelieu. And at this point, 3 versus 1 versus a low health ship. Yeah, might as well open fire. I could have just pulled to a dead halt here, actually, or even gone into reverse. But I guess I've just been whizzing around so much that it didn't occur to me that, yeah, I probably could have been able to shoot just a little bit longer or a little bit more effectively. But as it was, although I did get a little bit more damage, any potential of getting the kill was blocked by me getting the island between us. Still though, 142k, 3 kills and a decent number of torpedo hits out of that as well. As you can see from the team score, I wasn't even in first place. I was actually third. So the Marseille and the Gearing obviously did as much, if not more than I did. It's pretty rare to see 3 people with over 2,000 base XP. And the Austrian was actually in 4th place with 1,700. On the enemy team, we can see we had 4 people over 1,000 base XP on a loss. So this was a really, really hard contested battle. So you can kind of see why I chose this one to go up on the channel, why I kind of broke my streak of just doing the live recorded ones, because unlike a lot of high tier games, this was genuinely close, genuinely quite fun to play, and genuinely like both teams were really, really trying their hardest, and it was actually quite balanced overall instead of the kind of mismatch you get where you know, one team is quite easily overpowering the other team, and whether you're on the winning or the losing side, it's just a lot less fun generally. So lastly, as promised, captain skills. As you can see, I've got, I think, a pretty reasonable setup overall, and you can see the 3 there that I'd like to finish it out with. I don't know if this is optimal for French destroyers or not, but I find it works reasonably well for me. The only thing that might be droppable is Dazzle. Like I said, it's kind of hard to tell exactly how much good Dazzle is doing you at any one particular moment. But, I mean, it doesn't seem to be hurting, especially. I don't know, maybe someone will come along and say, actually, the maths proves that Dazzle is a completely useless skill, in which case, yes, I should probably respec this captain. But, I don't know. I guess we'll see. Anyway, so, yeah, that is it for this game. Hopefully you have enjoyed it as much as I enjoyed playing it. And if you did enjoy it, you can do all the usual things down underneath the video. And of course, as always, stay tuned for more.